At 0630 on June 6, 1944, 20-year-old German soldier Heinrich So crouched inside a concrete bunker above the beach the Americans would soon call Omaha. A quiet farm boy from Lower Saxony, he had never fired at another human being. Within hours, the largest invasion in history would change that forever. So manned a fortified bunker known as Widerstands Nest 62, one of several defensive positions guarding the sector of the Atlantic Wall. For 3 months he had helped dig trenches, string barbed wire, and prepare machine gun positions overlooking the sand below. He knew every meter of the beach. He knew where the tide reached, where rocks narrowed movement, and where attackers would be forced together under fire. German officers had carefully mapped these kill zones. If an invasion came, the defenders were ready. That morning, through mist over the English Channel, So watched the horizon slowly fill with ships. First dozens appeared, then hundreds, then more than he could count. The invasion the Germans had long feared had finally begun. German soldiers had been told the Atlantic Wall was nearly impregnable. They had also been told the Americans were soft, undisciplined soldiers who lacked the toughness for real war. What Seau saw that day would challenge everything he believed. His commanding officer reminded them the invasion must be stopped on the beach. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel believed the first 24 hours would decide the war in the West. If the Allies gained a foothold, Germany might never recover. But the shift in German perception of American soldiers did not begin on the beaches of Normandy. It had started 18 months earlier, far away in the harsh deserts of North Africa. In early 1943, German troops of the Afrika Korps were confident veterans. They had fought British forces across Libya and Egypt for years and believed themselves among the finest soldiers in the world. When American troops landed in North Africa during Operation Torch in 1942, many German soldiers laughed. They believed the Americans were inexperienced amateurs who would collapse quickly under pressure. German propaganda had reinforced this belief for years. The United States was portrayed as wealthy but weak, a nation obsessed with money rather than discipline. Few German soldiers expected serious resistance. At first, events seemed to prove them right. During the Battle of Kasserine Pass in February 1943, German forces smashed inexperienced American units, destroying tanks and capturing thousands of soldiers. American mistakes were obvious. Units were scattered across wide distances, communication failed, and many soldiers had arrived at the front with little training. German armored forces pushed through their lines with ease. German tank crews described the early fighting almost joyfully. After years battling the organized British army, they suddenly faced opponents who seemed confused and poorly coordinated. Even Rommel initially believed the Americans were years away from becoming capable soldiers. Their deployments were flawed, their command structure weak, and their battlefield reactions slow. But during those same battles, something unexpected happened. American forces that had broken under the first shock began reorganizing. Artillery became more accurate, units regrouped, and resistance slowly started to strengthen. German commanders noticed the change quickly. American artillery fire, once scattered and ineffective, suddenly became coordinated and devastating. Units that had retreated earlier began forming organized defensive lines. Instead of collapsing completely, American forces began slowing the German advance. What Rommel expected to become a total rout turned into a stubborn, fighting withdrawal that disrupted German plans. By February 22, 1943, Rommel made a surprising decision. He ordered his forces to withdraw. The Americans had not defeated him outright, but they had recovered faster than he believed possible. In his later writings, Rommel admitted the American defense had been first class. The enemy had quickly recovered from the initial shock and managed to halt the German advance. That phrase, recovered very quickly, became a recurring theme in German reports. The Americans might make mistakes, but they corrected them with remarkable speed. Behind the front lines, the U.S. Army moved rapidly to fix its failures. Commanders responsible for the defeat were replaced, including General Lloyd Fredendall. General George S. Patton took command of American forces, bringing strict discipline and aggressive leadership. Training programs intensified and units were reorganized for better coordination. American officers carefully studied the defeat. Communication systems were improved, artillery coordination strengthened, and scattered units were consolidated into stronger formations. German commanders expected these changes to take months or even years. Instead, the improvements became visible within weeks. In March 1943, American forces faced German troops again at the Battle of El Guetar. This time the result was very different. American artillery shattered German armored attacks, and infantry units held their positions firmly. The Germans were forced to withdraw after failing to break the American defenses. For German commanders, the lesson was clear. The Americans learned extremely quickly. They analyzed their mistakes and adapted faster than many experienced armies. Soon the Axis position in North Africa collapsed completely. Allied forces from the west and east trapped German and Italian troops in Tunisia. In May 1943, more than 260,000 Axis soldiers surrendered. It was one of Germany's largest defeats of the war, second only to Stalingrad. Yet the full meaning of America's growing power would not become clear until June 1944, when German soldiers along the coast of France looked out across the sea and saw the greatest invasion fleet in history approaching. Back at Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944, Heinrich Soe prepared his MG-42 machine gun as landing craft approached through the morning fog. From his bunker in Widerstands Nest 62, he had a clear field of fire across hundreds of meters of exposed sand. When the first American troops stepped into the water, Soe opened fire. The MG-42 fired nearly 200 rounds per minute, its rapid bursts echoing across the beach as bullets tore into the advancing soldiers. American infantry had to cross a wide stretch of open beach with almost no cover. Sand, surf, and steel obstacles offered little protection from the devastating machine gun fire coming from German bunkers. Soe fired continuously for hours, changing overheated barrels as ammunition belts emptied. The smell of burnt gunpowder filled the bunker, while wounded soldiers fell across the shoreline below. Wave after wave of American troops were cut down as they tried to advance. From the German perspective, the beach looked like a massacre unfolding in slow motion. Yet something shocked the German defenders. Despite the heavy losses, the Americans kept coming. Landing craft were destroyed, but new ones continued arriving. Entire units were wiped out on the sand, yet more soldiers stepped forward to replace them. German defenders watched in disbelief as the attacks continued without pause. Across the Normandy coast, German soldiers reported the same observation. The Americans refused to stop even under relentless fire. Meanwhile, the invasion expanded beyond the beaches. Paratroopers landed deep behind German lines, while gliders delivered additional troops and equipment during the night. German communications quickly began collapsing. Observation posts were destroyed, cables were cut, and radio signals were jammed by Allied interference. Soon German defenders could barely understand what was happening around them. Reports flooded in from every direction about landings, airborne assaults, and advancing enemy forces. When captured later, one German soldier described seeing the massive Allied supply dumps along the beaches. He reportedly remarked that the Americans had defeated Germany by piling up supplies and letting them fall on them. The scale of the invasion shocked German troops. Ships, vehicles, weapons, and endless equipment flowed onto the beaches faster than defenders believed possible. Within days, the Allies had built artificial harbors called mulberries, allowing them to unload supplies even without a traditional port. To German officers watching from the battlefield, it was clear they were facing something unprecedented, an enemy with industrial resources and logistical power on a scale Germany could not match. As the fighting spread into Normandy's hedgerow countryside, American troops initially struggled in the dense terrain. German defenders used thick embankments and hidden positions to slow the Allied advance. But once again, American forces adapted quickly. Soldiers welded steel cutters onto Sherman tanks, allowing them to break through hedgerows instead of climbing over them under enemy fire. Combined with heavy artillery, air power, and relentless pressure, the American advance gradually overwhelmed German defenses across Normandy and pushed them back toward Germany. By the end of the war, German soldiers who had once mocked American troops had changed their views completely. They had learned the enemy possessed enormous resources, rapid adaptability, and relentless determination. What began as contempt in 1943 had transformed into respect by 1945. The soldiers Germany once underestimated proved capable of learning quickly, fighting fiercely, and ultimately defeating one of the most powerful armies in Europe.